Hello, my name is host Derek. I'm just talking with famous people, and I want to talk about a subject that I've talked about on a number of occasions before, but one that I still ask questions about because I don't get it and I want a solution to it. And in this particular analysis, we're taking Bo for an INTP, and assuming he is one, and therefore subject to and suffering from probably the normal problems of the INTP. What I find particularly odd, and this is why I keep coming back to the question because it ceases to be answered. I mean, it remains unanswered. What I find to be odd is that fundamentally the INTP's lack of do is deeply illogical, which is ironic, of course, because they're a very logical type. In fact, probably, I would say possibly anyway, but probably even the most logical type. INTJs are a little more practical minded, and I think they would be the other type that would line up in general as the most logical type besides INTP. Regardless, so an example of this is what I call the INTP's failure to understand comparative durations. Comparative durations, I mean, they have difficulty weighting things. So they see decisions as all requiring a certain amount of analysis, or perhaps even a similar level of analysis. They might conclude that particularly significant decisions require more than less significant decisions, but it won't be proportionally more. So, in other words, they're naturally weighting things such that they're guaranteed to spend either too much time thinking about insignificant decisions or too little time thinking about significant decisions, because there's not proportionality between the time invested and the weight of the thing being thought about. So, to me, that's the core place of attack, is that if you're going to try to solve this issue, if there's one way the INTP ought to be able to solve this issue, it's by accepting the simple reality that they're doing something deeply illogical. Now,
I, I
here's
think a lot. Oh, can I talk?
oh, I haven't told you why it's illogical yet.
Okay, okay.
Then you can respond, okay? Because it's illogical because they don't seem to factor in the impacts of small actions that have big impacts and the ability of those small actions with big impacts to enable them to do and be more as they want to be. So whatever it is, the thing that you say is significant, more significant than what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the the INTP is penny wise and pound foolish. That's what it is. They're penny wise and pound foolish. They don't want to suffer the consequences of making poor decisions, but they fail to distinguish between the decisions where goodness and badness of the decision washes out real quick, like it doesn't really matter, it has no lasting impact, it doesn't spread, or doesn't go outward or upward, versus questions where the impacts of the action do have that potential. They treat everything as though it has the butterfly effect rather than the splash in the pool effect. Splash in the pool quickly dies down. It doesn't create reverberations and feedback loops, and suddenly you've got a tsunami of water in your pool, right? You disrupt the tranquility of the water, and it'll stay disrupted for a little while, and then it'll settle back down. Lots of decisions in life are like that. And my point is, those are decisions that INTPs are treating as though they're the other kind of vector, where they go, oh, we better be really careful of splashing because it might start a tsunami. No, it's not going to. Right? I mean, there's two different kinds of things there.
I think that we value the internal world so much that it's hard to get an impression on us to value something that's happening around us. So unless you mark something on our map or something that allows us to like take a mental hold of something, we're just gonna forget about it or not. It's not gonna trigger us at all. So I think that has a lot to do with NE and our ability to see possibilities. So since we see so many possibilities at once, we don't really choose between them. Uh, we let them pass by us. We like to just get the view rather than getting interacted with the environment. So it's all about like, I'm always trying to get that bigger picture, always trying to like expand my mind or like not even expand my mind,
Yeah, but what I'm
but
saying, Bo, is that you are hurting your ability to get the bigger picture. And the reason you're hurting your ability to get the bigger picture is because sometimes getting the bigger picture means you have to like step up one step to see over a wall or something, right? And
yeah,
what I'm saying is there are some small basic actions that could enable INTPs often to be more free to be how they want to be, right? And
yeah,
and the utility aspect of it is not only not enticing to the INTP, it's counter motivational. So extrinsic motivations in psychology in general are known to always decrease intrinsic motivations. Now that doesn't necessarily mean a net decrease in motivation, but it does mean that you will be motivated for your own reasons less once you are paid to do something or extrinsically motivated in some other way. But INTPs seem to have that the worst. That's what I think. Is that you guys really have an allergic reaction to doing things for reasons other than your own.
yeah. Like I hate doing things for money. Like I hate the idea that I would have to get a career just to support myself. I'd rather be able to do something I love while getting a meager paycheck that I can just live off of. I don't like the idea of
But that's unwise and
balancing
illogical.
huh?
It's unwise, illogical, and infantile. That's the thing. ENTPs have the same trait. I realized recently it's infantile. I really, really want somebody to be my mommy and take care of the shit I don't like to deal with because I'm a fucking baby, I guess. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with me. You know, it occurred to me not that long ago, like a week ago or something. Oh, it's because you're a big fucking baby. That's why you just expect everybody to, you're always throwing little tantrums and shit. But what are you gonna do? I'm born this way. I don't know.
Let me think.
Sharon, you want to jump in here? You got anything to say?
Anyone else here?
Yeah, Sharon. He was on the mic a
Yeah.
little bit before you got here.
Yeah, sure. What's up?
Do you have any
I was
thoughts on
gonna say
this?
that INTJs and INTPs, I kind of think the same way, but like you said, we're a little bit more logical and see the facts for what they are. So I typically like hanging out with INTPs because I like to burst their bubbles and bring it down to reality. And we work on stuff and finalize it to like the actual what we need it to be.
Well, I mean, you got to watch out for you got to watch out with INTPs, dude. They
I
are
like
not the
making
one to
INTJs
fuck
feel
with in general.
insecure. I like making INTJs feel insecure about their knowledge.
I try to stick. I try to go in there real quick and be like, yeah, you don't want to mess with that hornet's nest, really. INTPs are slippery. First of all, they won't make very many mistakes, so you're not going to have much to jump on. They're very cautious, but they also know how to bide their time, and they're highly competitive when it gets down to it, and they won't forget that, and they will get you back. For sure. I mean, it would be the only type it would be worse to try to do that to would be an ENTP. That's what I think, but that's just my opinion, right? You have a different take on it. It's fine. I am obviously somebody who's worked with a lot of INTPs. I worked with Kimball, who was an INTP who was deadly. Fuck, that woman was deadly. But she was a state champion, of course, former state champion in debate. So that's gonna make you deadly. Okay, well...
What I was just trying to explain is that I like hearing out all their ideas and plans and then actually come to fruition on some of them, like what are realistically feasible.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I like answering with INTPs. They're extremely, like I said, I'd consider one of them, a few of them to be good friends with INTJs. if you ever meet one.
Right.
We're
Well,
just good at moving the environment, like around us. Like we can get something, an idea, and extrapolate certain things from it, and then be able to invoke that into other people. So we can like place an idea into someone else, so they can relate to it.
okay, so I want to just toss in here real quick as we draw this video to a close. I'm going to elicit a little comment from Pepsi Maximus if he wants to say anything about this. I'll briefly give him a lowdown on it, and then if not, I think we're transitioning out of this. But I want to add the following: I still maintain, as he continues to smell like it, that Bo's an ENTP. So just for the record, okay? Pepsi Maximus, we're having a discussion about INTP in action, and my proposition is that it stems from a failure to differentiate between the way that impacts play out in different types of systems. So it's like if you splash a splash in the pool, it doesn't build up into a feedback loop and make a giant wave come out of your pool, right? It's not that kind of thing. It's not subject to feedback loops like that. Okay, and some other things might be subject to feedback loops like that, or something like the butterfly effect. I think my position is that INTPs don't do what you're supposed to do, which is not think about the shit that operates on the splash vector, right? Like it's gonna get lost in the wash anyway, and so it doesn't really matter on any level, intellectually, abstractly, or anything, because it's just one of the details beneath the superstructure. You don't need to know that, really. I think INTPs have a tendency to get lost in those specifics that don't matter, and I think that's why they have difficulty acting, is because they want to make sure all the paths are safe, and they failed to eliminate from riskiness possibility a whole class of path that they should not have to look at all.
Yeah, that's basically what I was meaning. That like they'll tend to blow bubbles, and like their ideas will go all the way all over the place. But I like to pop the ones that don't work or I don't like, and then when we get down to the minimum ones that are actual like noteworthy, those are the ones that we'll pursue.
Well, I tell you this: NTJs, and particularly INTJs, are the ones that I work well with or get along with in general. I mean, I don't know very many ENTJs. I like Chad, but I know I like
They're a
Kunkel.
lot milder.
Who?
They're a lot milder.
But INTJs are the ones that I tend to get along with and be friends with. So the reason is this: what you indicate there is something that I value highly in INTJs. Specifically, the ability to coalesce me back onto the core vision when I get tangled up in my NE sometimes. You know, it's like I can be really effective in terms of processing through an idea, thinking about how it's going to play out, making predictions, just general analysis stuff. But I can tend to lose track of the core vision of something and get tangled up in the NE. I'm subject to mission creep, as they say. So that is something I very much and have always valued in the INTJs particularly, but in the NTJs in general, is their capacity, ability, and apparent need to remind me to get back onto topic. Which I every time they tell me, I say, thank you. I really appreciate that. Keep that up. I like that. But sometimes they feel they're not used to being encouraged in that sort of thing. I think they're used to being discouraged in that sort of thing. So I don't know what to tell you about that.
It's just
Yeah, I
the
think the only-
NTJs. I'm sorry.
I think
go ahead.
no,
Yeah, I'm just talking about INTJ specifically.
I think the only good that NTPs are, not ENTPs, NTPs are, they're good at universalizing. They're really good at breaking down the components of something and trying to build it back into a coordinate. They're good at picking it down.
Yeah, I think our most natural inclination is to dismantle, and then we of course can also build, because if you dismantle really well, you got to be able to build really well too. Because when we dismantle, it's not like we take a wrecking ball to it. We take it apart piece by piece by piece and set them all out and say, see how all these pieces are fucked up? That wasn't a building that was made out. Obviously those things didn't make a building. We have here a bunch of sticks on the ground. That's what we do, yeah. But but here's the thing. There are excellent balancing impacts from NTJ, NTP interactions in general, I think. And we tend to kind of roll our eyes at each other, you know. The NTPs will roll their eyes at NTJ. We sometimes might consider stuffiness or something, you know, like
That's what I call it mild.
like properness, you know, or something like that. And then you guys have lots to roll your eyes at because we're kind of all over the place and we're not necessarily reliable and all that other shit. So you know, but you guys actually don't actually roll your eyes because you just look like this. And then that's it. I don't. If I can make an INTJ smile with a joke or something, I've really accomplished something, and I'm feeling pretty good. But I now I'm starting to feel worried because J-Matt's pissed. J-Matt's pissed, and he's got some sort of club in his hand. Thanks for watching Talking with Famous People.